And here we are back. After a short break, welcome you back to the Excel Podcast 10-Minute Leaders Live, sharing with you small but valuable insights into the world of people from all over the world who are making a change in different ways. Technology, business, society. Joined today all the way from the other side of the day. Good morning to you, Harlan, all the way from the US stateside. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited about this.
Yeah. Well, we've spoken already, haven't we? We've spoken a few times, actually.
We've spoken a few times. You were on my podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Before we get started, a shout out to your podcast then. What do we need to know? What's the podcast and where do we find it?
Yeah, the podcast is called The Courage to Lead. And I talk to business leaders and entrepreneurs about what it takes to be a courageous leader, where they found the courage to leave the 9-to-5 job to create their success. And it's available on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's on all the major channels. So The Courage to Lead.
It's a good podcast as well. So we'll remind the audience of a shout out of that at the end of this 10 minutes as well as a link to your website. If you're watching live or if you're watching on the archive, you'd better go and check out Harlan and his work. So we've got 10 minutes together. Are you ready, Harlan?
I am ready. Absolutely.
All right, then let's get started. So let's do the formalities. Business card. What does it say on yours, Harlan?
You've had these amazing guests that all have these great taglines. My business card is a little boring when it compares to them. My business card just says business and leadership coach.
It's not that boring, is it? Because, I mean, if we think about what you were talking about on the podcast as well, that you get to hear some really interesting stories.
Absolutely.
And these are very human stories as well. People are never they don't come with easy answers. Everybody's not going in a straight line in their lives of careers and leadership and so on. So that's why they need coaches. Exactly. So how long have you been doing that?
Well, I was a management consultant for about 27 years in the area of organizational change. So working with companies that were undergoing some major change, either a merger acquisition, a process reengineering, or a restructuring, or a software implementation, we would work with the executive team to help them understand the change and all the impacts that were coming with that change, and then help them communicate and lead their people through the change so they were as productive after as they were before. So after getting on a plane every Monday and every Friday for 25 plus years, I told my wife, I'm kind of tired of traveling. So I'd like to stay around home and work on that piece that I really enjoyed, which was working with the executive team to help them be better leaders, better communicators with their teams and stuff. So that's what I did. So I've been doing the coaching for about 5 years now.
So if you add all of that up, 25 plus 5 years, in all of that time, how have those executives changed? What's different? Because there were business books written about change management back in the 90s and 80s. That was the thing now.
Absolutely. But total quality management and everything like that way back in the 80s.
What's different now?
Yeah, it is different now because I think people are a lot more aware that there's a different way to do it. Back when I worked at Lockheed Aircraft out in California years ago, you had managers who their model was to yell, scream, throw things, grab people by the shirt collar and shake them. You don't do that anymore, right? People have learned that you don't get the productivity and everything out of people treating them that way. There are a lot of great books out that talk about leadership courage and how to work with dysfunctional teams to bring those teams together. There's a lot of really good books out there. And so most of the executives that I work with now are well read. They've got bookshelves of all the books. And sometimes they have trouble applying what they read. They know they should, they just don't know exactly how to do it. And so I try to help them implement those steps.
Who's really shaped that area? The authors, the opinion leaders in the space of leadership. Obviously, if we're going back to the last century, it's the Maxwells and the Jack Welchers. Maybe they were the old school of leadership, the jump and scream type. But where are we now?
No, they're still applicable today. Absolutely. John Maxwell has some amazing books out there and stuff. Tony Robbins has a lot of good books out there. The guys that I followed were like John Cotter, who was talking about change, organizational change, and how it works and everything like that. Simon Sinek, I think, would be big too. He's put out a lot of really good information on, why you do what you do, right? Why leaders eat last, books like that. I mean, he's got some great stuff. So yeah, I would say they were the leaders right now, I think.
So you're dealing with clients and leaders who are well read They have access to all this information, maybe too much information in some cases. They have all the knowledge they need. Why do they then need somebody like you? Surely if they have access to a world of information, the last thing they need is more information.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying, that they need to know how to apply. I'm working with one client right now. He's read all the books. He can quote all the books. He knows all the authors of all the books. But he goes, I read about this and I'm interested in that. How do I do that? And so then we'll put together a plan. We'll look at what he's doing and then how can we implement this and give him, either the words to say or try to help him find the courage to say some of the things that he needs to say. And that's really what it's all about. I know that I should exercise more. I know I should eat better. I don't always know what that looks like. My mind, this is healthy. Tomorrow there's going to be a report on CNN that says it's not healthy for you. So you need somebody to kind of help you through those ins and outs. And that's what I try to do.
What tends to be the problem that they face? Why? These are smart people, successful people. They've risen to the top of their careers. What is the barriers and the choke points that prevent them being better leaders?
It varies. A lot of times it's significance. They want to feel important. I work with some small to mid-sized companies, and the business owner started the business. He's running it the way that he wants to do it, but he wants to be the focal point. All questions come through him. All decisions come through him. And it's a matter of that feeling significant. If he turns that over to somebody, he's kind of lost his power, right? So we have to show him how he can become significant in other ways. Delegate that work to somebody else. Let them do the heavy lifting and him focus on actually growing the business. So I think a lot of it has to do with that. And like we talk about on the podcast, finding the courage. How do you be courageous enough to set aside your long held beliefs to allow room for your employees to have good ideas and bring those ideas and share them, without feeling put out or something. The moral courage, always do what's right, even though it may be detrimental financially to your company. Do what's right, those type of things. And leaders today have to find that courage and step up.
Well, you've touched upon it. The zeitgeist of the times, the words that we hear a lot about. I want you to help us understand what they mean. I'm going to put them up on the screen here. Okay. These probably come up in every leadership conversation today, rightly or wrongly, and they are hijacked in their own way. Resilience, authenticity, and vulnerability. You were talking about, for example, leaders changing the way that they communicate and the way that they appear towards their teams as well. I'm sure a lot of it comes into this conversation as well. Absolutely. What are your thoughts on these three areas? Do you think they're overdone? And what's the realities within these three hashtags, buzzwords, whatever you want to call them?
Yeah, you do hear them a lot. Resiliency is important. Coming back from, problems that have happened, things right now, with the COVID pandemic, a lot of businesses lost customers. Sometimes they've shut down because they, just couldn't wait the pandemic out. To have that resilience to be able to come back. But that takes a strong leader, takes a strong team. So I think that's important. The authenticity, that's something in all the books right now. Being an authentic leader just means be who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to, model yourself after somebody. Who are you? What are you doing? Who do you do it for? And why do you do it? That's really what it comes down to, is that simplicity. Who are you? What do you do? And who do you do it for and why? Focus on that. And then vulnerability, that's part of that courage to be able to, I tell the story. I worked with a guy years ago at Lockheed Aircraft. We were in the top secret government side. So we were working on a project, hoping to get a long-term contract. And the contract was eventually awarded to another company. And the executive who was running this program came up to us and he took full responsibility. He goes, I let you all down. He broke down. He choked up. He goes, I let you guys down. He goes, I didn't do what I needed to do to pull this project through. And he thanked us all for our hard work and stuff. And it's like, at that moment, we would have walked through fire for this guy, right? Because he didn't make us feel bad that we lost it. He took full responsibility and he was vulnerable. He said, I didn't do everything that I should have done. And that takes courage.
Yeah. They're strongly interconnected, aren't they? I mean, courage, the word itself comes from heart, doesn't it?
Yes.
That vulnerability as well is that, even in all our relationships in business and personally as well, we have to be vulnerable if we want to connect with people. That's tough though. I mean, that's why I think we need to have these conversations about courage and vulnerability, because if you are successful in business, often you've become successful by being the opposite of vulnerable,
Right.
by building this armor around you, especially if it's in a large corporation.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of behaviors that you talked about off the
Yeah.
bat, you know, that sort of jumping and screaming type thing.
Yeah.
So I feel that things are changing, but it's not
They are.
easy, is it?
No, it's not easy at all. But I had one guy on the podcast, and he talked about how he built this company. It was a software as a service company, and his model that he grew up seeing a leader was the yeller, the screamer, the person who would belittle the team, blame them for everything that was going wrong. And half his team walked out on him, and the business almost failed. And he came to the realization that, hey, it's all on my shoulders. And he had to go back on his knees, apologizing to these people and try to regrow his business and build it from a culture of love and acceptance and, humility. And they're flying now. I mean, they're doing amazing things. They even have people reaching out to them saying, come and help us build our culture. So it can be done. It can be done.
Who would have thought, though, Harlan, in the days 30 years ago when you were starting out, those words, love, acceptance, humility, would be the words that we'd be talking about in this day and age.
No. We were
Maybe
happy
they
to have a
always were
job.
there.
Yeah, we were happy to have a job, and they treated us that way. Hey, you're lucky to be here, and now it's different. It's like, how can I help you be the best you, which in turn will help us be the best company, right? If you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers will eventually take care of you. And that's really, that's the new cycle of life.
Yeah, it's positive. All right, then. Well, on that note, I'm going to give you the stage for the last 2 minutes, which is on that riff itself. Teach us something that will improve our lives, specifically about how you can be the best you, being, how can I be a better leader? And, what do I need to do? And we've only got 2 minutes, and that's a little bit unfair.
I think I could do it. To me, it's all about finding that courage. Find the courage to, again, the intellectual courage, set aside your long-held beliefs and make room for somebody else's ideas. You can't learn something if you're the only one talking, right? You got to stop and listen for a while. The moral courage, always do what's right, even when nobody's looking. That's really what it's all about. Social courage, say what needs to be said, stand up and have your voice heard. Even if it goes against grain, if it goes, against the current stream, stand up and talk about it. And I think those things are important. I think we're seeing a change in leaders now. I think there are a lot of great leaders out there that are really doing it right, and we ought to start modeling them, what they do.
Fantastic. There you have it. A little bit of time to spare, so I'm going to ask you one last bonus question. Okay. Who would you say? I mean, I know you read a lot as well. You're very much an avid consumer of wisdom out there, and you do your podcast as well, so you're exposed to a lot of people and ideas. Who are the great leaders of our time in your book? Not necessarily the ones, I guess, that are the most known either. So let's stay away from politics.
Yes, thank you.
Who would be the leaders that you say, like you say, these are the case study examples that we need to model and learn from?
Yeah.
Who would you choose?
There's a gentleman that's works in the organizational change management space. His name is Daryl Connor. He does some amazing things, helping people become that 10%, where you're working on the 10% work rather than doing just the mundane things. Working at that 10% level where you're really focusing on your zone of genius and doing it. I think he's good. John Maxwell. I like all of John Maxwell's stuff. I think he's got some amazing things that are timeless. But there's some other good books out that I would recommend for people. Of course, I can't think of the titles right now and the authors.
It's on the spot.
Yeah,
they'll come to you as soon as
they're
you
back
finish
there on my
this.
shelf. They're back there on my shelf.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure if people go and check out your work and your website as well, there'll be references to it there. And in the podcast, there will be a few citations, I'm sure. So let's do it then. Where do we find out more about you, Harlan?
A couple different ways. My website is ib4e-coaching.com. So it's letter I, letter B, the number 4, letter E-coaching.com. You can also check out the podcast, please, at The Courage to Lead, available on Apple iTunes and all the other outlets. And I've got a YouTube channel where I have short videos, tips and tricks, Harlan's hacks, those little things, that just come to the top of your head and say, hey, I want to share this. So those videos are available on YouTube.
Awesome. Well, what a wonderful start to the day. Starting with you, Harlan, and your hacks and your insights. I really enjoyed that. Thanks for sharing with us. Thank you for coming on Excel today.
Absolutely. No, it's been fun. I appreciate it.
rising to the challenge as well. Courage to lead, the courage to come on a podcast as well.
Yes.
So,
A live
Coach Harlan,
podcast.
everybody, wonderful having you on. Thank you very much, and have yourself a great day.
Thanks, Graham. You too. Thank you.